My friends, in a moving scene from The River, Jean Renoir's beautiful film of India, a crippled American soldier is outraged over the cross he has been given to bear. In his anguish, he asks a Hindu woman if there is anything he can do to make life worthwhile. She replies in a single word: consent. In other words, just be. This is what Jesus is telling us very simply in today's gospel. Whoever does not take up their cross and renounce themselves for his sake cannot be his disciple. If we want to be the person that God really wants us to be, then we need to consent, to renounce all that keeps us from being just that. When we turn our attention to St. Luke's Gospel, we can understand why the French scholar Ernest Renan described it as the most beautiful book in the world. Beyond its literary style, it is beautiful because of the particular story that is told by St. Luke. It is a love story, pure and simple. From the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem, through his public ministry, to his death on the cross, it is a story of love and forgiveness. We need to see this story in context of who we are as members of Jesus' body, all the while knowing that we cannot be who we are on our own, but how often we try. Some of us try by making money or collecting possessions, the things that many of us call security. Now, there's nothing wrong with those particular things as long as those things don't possess us. Some of us do it in other ways, like trying to control other people. Some of us do it through alcohol or drugs. But all of these things that we call security blankets are only temporary. There's a story about a woman who was preparing to sell her house. She had a 77-year-old mother and some others who came over to help her. They were to get the house ready for prospective buyers. Well, the mother was one of those take-charge persons. So she proceeded to organize everything and to tell people what to do. In the afternoon, she went outside with her 74-year-old sister to rake leaves. So she began raking up a storm while her sister worked at a more calmer pace. Well, finally, the older woman shouted over her shoulder, "Annie, if there's anything I can't stand, it's a lazy person." Well, Annie leaned gracefully on her rake and replied, "Edna, did you ever stop to think that if there's anything that a lazy person can stand, it's you?" A lot of us are like that, trying to get everyone to do it our way, all the while making life miserable for those around us. The only power that is great enough to break through that kind of control and free us from all kinds of bondage is the power of God in Christ, especially in his power through the cross. St. Paul said it like this: God shows divine love for us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. When we consent and just be, God is truly present. The late Fulton Sheen, servant of God, once asked to describe his most inspiring moment. This is what he said: "A few years ago, I visited a leper colony in Africa. I brought with me 500 silver crucifixes to give to each victim. The first leper, who came up to me, had only a stump on one arm, and the other was filled with those white open sores of leprosy. I held the crucifix a few inches above his hand and let it drop to his palm. At that moment, there were 501 lepers. I had taken the symbol of redemption, he said, of divine love for humankind, of the humiliation of divinity for our poor fallen human nature, and had refused to identify myself with all that symbol applied. He said, it was so easy to love humanity in general, yet so difficult to love humans in particular. It is easy to help lepers, but when one meets a particular leper, then a special effort is required. He said, seeing myself in the full shame of refusing to identify myself with them, I looked at the crucifix in his putrid hand, and realizing that I too must become one with suffering humanity. Then I pressed my hand into his hand with the symbol of love between us, and continued to do it for the other 499. It is in God's love that we discover our true security and our true worthwhileness and our true rescue from fear and death. The more we trust in God to make our life worthwhile, the more effective our deeds are in the long run, for they come out of our true self, where God is truly present, empowering us to be women and men for others. Jesus took up his cross supremely as a person for others. Let us follow him.